Okay, so I wanted to talk to you guys about something that's been on my mind lately the past couple of days, and just to share my experience with you guys. Um, when it comes to these particular types of unions, I've been spending time in prayer on something that God gave me. You know, He promised me a spouse. I'm not going to mention her name on here. It just wouldn't seem fair to her, especially when she's in the predicament that she is. And God kept showing to me that she's running from her calling. She's in the belly of a whale. And the thing that He kept giving me was In the Belly of a Whale by the Newsboys. You know, these unions, these kingdom marriages, I don't care if you're a prodigal and you're listening to this, or if you're the kingdom spouse that's been given the revelation, um, need to understand that if God shows you a very specific purpose, um, and like in my situation, God has given me revelation after revelation after revelation, and I've already seen my own family. I've already seen my spouse come back to me. I've already seen the children. I have seen Darcy and Remy, they're twins. Even Samuel, he's, um, you know, what the Lord showed me was that they're prophetic and that the enemy's trying to stop their birthright. He's trying to use anything through witchcraft. And I want you guys to understand that it's witchcraft. It's witchcraft manipulation of the mind. It's voodoo. It's anything to stop you from fulfilling your calling. Maybe get to you run from your calling. Um, but these unions, God's not playing around. He'll expose you. He'll send you back. He'll take everything away from you just to get you to submit to your calling. Because what He showed me is that they have to come into existence. And when the God decides that He's going to do something, it doesn't matter what's on your heart. It doesn't matter what you feel. It doesn't matter what pressure you think you're getting from that person or not. Um, and so what the Lord really wanted me to understand last night is that, I don't know how many of you guys out there are able to see into the future, or God can give you uh, bits and pieces. When He gives you a revelation, He speaks to you in dreams or through pictures or maybe movie clips. And with me, He does that. He'll show me something that hasn't come yet. It's um, Amos 3:7 talks about the prophetic. He talks about the prophets as part of the fivefold ministry. They get revelations from the Lord, but they also have to be comfortable with hearing from Him. Not many of your kingdom spouses might not be comfortable hearing the Lord, so therefore they have to go around the mountain instead of go through the mountain. And so, um, the one thing the Father had made it very clear to me is that I had already seen all this. I had already seen everything that my spouse is about to go through. You know, um, all the revelations. I mean, I could base this off of the corruption that's going on in this country and how God's going to expose it all. And He's not playing around. He's not playing around with marriage and how it should be treated. And so, in the very beginning of time, before you were ever born, God saw your purpose. He saw your uniqueness, and He knows who you are called to be. He knows what you're called to be. He knows what you're comfortable doing. And so, He knew that you would want to have a ministry. He knew that you would want to reach out to people. You would want to see people get saved. And so, I've come to find out that my kingdom spouse is running from the Father. She's running from the calling that's on her life. I know she's chosen for something major. I know this. But I just recently found out that I have a musical talent, and that I caught a mantle. I really believe that God's given me the late great Carmen. from the artist who wrote No Monsters, you know, that I have a kingdom spouse that is refusing to follow her calling, and God's not playing around. Some of your spouses, God is about to expose your spouses. So I don't know who I'm talking to. And I'm just thinking out there. Maybe there's a woman out there. Maybe God gave you a promise about your prodigal husband, and he's just refusing to come back. He just, texting you and saying, "Don't ever call me again, woman. What's wrong with you? Crazy. You know, I get it. I'm hurt. The one that I love deeply inside is just abusing me left and right in the supernatural. It's like she in her silence, it's like she doesn't even care. But I'm going to tell you that God's already shown me her heart. So she can't lie to me. Years ago, I just got so upset and I said, "God, why does she keep saying this? Does she understand that she's creating a confession that she doesn't need to say?" And I remember somebody would say, she'd say, if I'm ever to be able to love someone like you, someone's gonna have to do heart surgery on me. Well, God told me that I was the one that was gonna do it, but it took, I don't know how many years it took for me to learn what I had to do. Whether it's through music and ministry, I had to learn new techniques. I'm not the same person I used to know. And if you step on one of my boundaries, I'm going to snap at you because I used to not know them. And all of a sudden it's like, look, I know empathy. I know these things, but you know what? I have to be obedient. And when God tells me to do something, regardless of what somebody thinks or chooses to say, this is the hard thing, is that, God showed me, and even through a friend of mine, that she has had a revelation about me. And a lot of your kingdom spouses, good or bad, the situation, God's either has given them a revelation, or He's about to. And the thing is, if you are called, I'm just gonna make this straight up. Some of these kingdom unions are going to be going after the lost coins. You're going to be going after people that don't know the Lord, who rather think that they're not lost, that they don't need to come back to the Lord, they'd rather do their own thing, and that these kingdom unions are going to be going after these lost sheep, these lost coins. We know that Jesus always leaves the 99 and goes after the 1%. He always goes after that one person that's lost in the kingdom. And so what's been, really going through me is that, in the foundation of this world, God chose for you. He chose for you a spouse. He chose for you a partner. And this is what it is that He perfectly chose for you. He handcrafted and picked for you a spouse that would understand you, who would understand you to the point that you are becoming their assignment. They are to care for you. They are to take care of you. They are to know how to help you. And it's really hard for me because, I love someone deeply in my heart. I know God has shown me things, and I know I've seen right through His own eyes, and I know that He's not a God that can lie. And, I've seen it all. I've seen my kingdom spouse come home, and I've seen how, she's apologizing and crying, and, and it's like, why would you do that to me? Why would you run from your calling? Why would you run from the one that God intended you to have? And I'm not the same person I used to be anymore. My heart's fragile, and maybe I had to do something, I don't know, but I guess I had to leave the couch and leave her on the couch, and I felt like I had to go upstairs, but then I came back halfway down the stairs, and I just burst into tears. And one of my dreams that God has shown me is that it hurts so bad when you love them. It's like Cruel Summer from Taylor Swift. And it's like, is it the worst thing you've ever heard from me say to you? Is that I love you? That I still am standing in the gap for you? That even after all this time, I mean, I get up in the middle of the night to rebuke witchcraft off of her. I get up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and I rebuke witchcraft and sorcery off of her, asking God to show me how to cover her, how to protect her. And then she tells my family she doesn't want anything to do with me. She tells all this. And you know what? It's okay. She crossed the line on something. And she knows she did. You don't go talking bad about God's chosen ones. You don't talking bad about the chosen ones. You don't talk about his prophets in that way. Especially the ones that are his anointed ones. I'm truly prophetic. You know, my gift in the prophetic, I don't know when I see into the future and I see about 4 to 5 years down the road, or if I'm seeing right now. The best way that I can describe it is somebody that has the ability to teleport, but you're not just teleporting wherever. You have no clue where you're going. By the power of the Holy Ghost, you're being directed. And so even one of my prophetic mentors said that I would be like Mystic from the X-Men comics, that, Marvel comics, where I would be teleporting around because God would need me so much, because of the hearts that are broken. He's not playing around with these unions. He's not playing around. And if you're a prodigal, listen to this, and you know, and I'm going to hold you accountable. If you're a prodigal and God's given you a revelation about your kingdom spouse, and you're refusing to pick up your cross and follow the Lord, and you're refusing to come back into that person's life, God's not going to play around with you. He says he respects your free will, but into the end of the day, you're going to have his perfect will for his life, because souls are on the line. Are you going to let 10,000 souls die and go to hell without the Lord because you refuse to walk in your calling, because you refuse to be like Jonah and go to Nineveh and to warn Nineveh? Are you gonna let 10,000 people go to hell because you refuse to follow your calling that God put on your life? Maybe you're the prodigal male, maybe you're the prodigal husband, and maybe God's been tugging on your heart, but you're like, no, I don't want to go back to her, or no, I don't feel that way, or whatever. I'm telling you right now, God's going to knock you off your horse. He's going to lance you and knock you to the ground, because he's not playing around. It's his final harvest, and these kingdom unions are not like every single assignment. These aren't like your regular marriages. You don't get 6 months to date. You don't get 6 months to decide that you're going to be engaged and then a year to finalize your wedding. No, that is not how he's doing things right now. When he says it's time, and he's going to do it suddenly. And if you're playing around and you're refusing to walk in your mantle, and you're supposed to be going home, and I'm going to tell you, knowledge is powerful. If you've been given revelation about your kingdom spouse and the person that's intended for you, you continue to stand and you continue to press before the Father, because it's about souls. These aren't just regular marriages, folks. These are people that are going to battle against the enemy. And the best thing that I want to describe to you is a scene from Doctor Who, when Doctor Who and River Song are fighting against They're fighting against the silence, and they got Amy and Rory, and Amy's been kidnapped, and they want to sacrifice Amy, but they had to come in there and they had to rescue Amy, but they had to find out where Amy was. So this is what's so important. Is a lot of your kingdom spouses, especially if you're a prodigal, I don't think you understand your calling. I don't think you understand the value of your partner. And if you're out there and you're being disobedient, and you're trying to run from your calling, God's already provided you a spouse. He's not giving you somebody else. He's not going to allow it. He's not going to allow you to continue to run and allow you to continue to hide The Father's not going to allow that. You are going to have to submit to His will, His perfect will. Because, yes, you have free will, but in the end of the day, you're going to have to say, God, let your will be done. Do you think Jesus really wanted to die for you on the cross? Do you think He really wanted to take that cup and to go through that suffering and to have to die for you? I've read about it. Crucifixion was the most painful death, and it was slow and very painful, excruciating. And then they made it worse too. They prolonged people's deaths on those crosses. It was considered capital punishment back then. And so I want you to understand, when you look at your kingdom spouse, when you look at someone that God has already promised you, He's already handpicked them. He's picked the cream of the crop. Okay? And you cannot be going and condemning someone who walks in a prophetic gift. You can't go condemning your spouse who may have already seen something. May God probably let them see through His eyes. That's the only way. You can't go condemning, and pointing the blame finger and go, no, you didn't hear that, when you actually did. You can't be doing that anymore. He says God's not playing around. He's going to box you in. He's going to take all your toys away from you. He's going to expose you. He's going to convict you. There's no more excuses. He's not playing around. He says these kingdom unions are part of the final harvest. He says the reason He's choosing to these couples. He says you have to understand you're working together. You're working together to bring people together. It's healing crusades. It's people being baptized randomly on a beach ocean who are getting saved and then getting baptized at the same time. You're throwing the enemy off. He doesn't see it coming. The devil doesn't want you to be successful. And I'm telling you right now, if you're a prodigal out there, if you're a prodigal spouse, the enemy doesn't want anything for you. He doesn't want you to be happy. He doesn't want you to have anything good. He doesn't want you to have any happiness. He wants you to live in mediocrity. He wants you to just be sad all the time. And and this is the thing. You might think you can be lucky, but if God's already chosen someone for you, and you're making that person cry, and you walked away from that person, and you're making that person cry repeatedly, and they're crying out to the Father saying, send my spouse home. Send my spouse home. Put them through whatever they have to go through. You convict their heart. You do what you have to do. I want some of you guys to know that some of your spouses are coming before the Father, going into the Supreme Court of Heaven, and reminding that they can't do this ministry without you. That if they don't want souls going to hell. Like me, I don't want to see anyone go to hell. I know there'll be people that are going to go to hell. I'm going to tell you that right now. God's not playing around right now. He's not playing around. He wants this final harvest, and these kingdom unions are more important to Him than anything else. So if He has to grab both of you and yank you back together and pull you in with force and slam you two together like an electron and a neutron and force you into creating an atom to create a new element, then He's going to have to do it. But He isn't playing around. He's not playing around with any of these unions right now. So whoever I'm talking to, I want you to understand God's not playing. He's not playing with you. He's not playing with your spouse. Some of your kingdom spouses out there, some of them are probably still in bondage. Some of them are running from their calling, and you're going to have to step up to the plate, and you're going to have to pray for them. You're going to have to speak things as if they are not as if they are. You can't be going and making lies about these people. If God's called them for a very specific purpose, it says you didn't just get chosen. Yeah, you might have been introduced to your spouse, and then your spouse walked away from you, ran from you, didn't want anything to do with you. But I'm going to promise you, I don't know who I'm talking to out there, and it's like you've been crying over and over again. God's got a perfect plan for your life, and He is going to do the impossible. He's going to do the impossible. He will provide for you no matter what is going on. It might look impossible, but maybe that's how He wants it to be. Maybe He doesn't want the enemy to know that it's coming. Maybe if you have to go to your kingdom spouse Maybe your kingdom spouse is going to come to you. That it looks impossible. It looks like it's going to tear you apart. Because you've been crying all night, all day. And one of my friends who lives in India, her legal husband is in foreign vacation, has already had sex with another woman, had a child with another woman, is a scammer, and she's been married to him for 20 years. And God has had it with these people. He sees the heartache. And if you're a prodigal and you're acting like, oh, you don't want anything to do with your kingdom spouse, I'm going to warn you right now. God's not playing around with you. He is not playing right now. He is not playing with you. He is not playing around. Because I want you to understand that He's heard the tears. He's heard the cries coming from the spouse, from your kingdom spouse. You might be assigned to someone. And if you've been given revelation about your kingdom spouse and you're a prodigal and you're running the other direction, God's not going to play with you in this hour, in this time frame. He's going to send you right on back. He's going to push you. He's not playing around. So, but for those out there that are standing and have been given a promise regarding their kingdom spouse, I want you to keep standing. I want you to keep believing. Don't give the enemy any room. You know, when you're close to your victory, the enemy's going to come in with distractions, and he's going to try to pull you off course. He's going to try to take you off course. He's going to try to get you to walk away, throw the towel in. He's going to even cause your kingdom spouse to try to even, or your prodigal spouse, the one that you've been praying, believing is going to come home, to get you to get off the journey and to stop believing. They may not know that, but that's what's going on. So you got to keep on believing. You got to keep on pressing, because God's going to do it. He's going to provide for you. But you're going to have to keep pressing. You're going to keep praying. You got to keep reminding the Father that He promised this to you. You know, I remind the Father that He promised me someone special, and that I happen to be His preferred choice for her. I am her preferred choice for her, and I know that, because God's already shown me everything. Last night He reminded me of all the things I've seen. You know, I had a dream and a prophetic vision that we were looking at a map at Disney World. I think we were either in Epcot Center or we were in Magic Kingdom. And we're looking at that map, and God reminded me, says, can you look down closer? Because I remember, you know, when I see things as I walk in the prophetic, I see pictures. And I see everything around it. And we were both holding that map together. And so when she had her hand on that map, I had mine on the other side. But what God showed me is it was both of our left hands. Her left hand and my left hand were on this map. And we were looking at the map. And I could see my grandmother's wedding band or wedding ring on her finger. And I want you folks to understand that when God shows you something like that, you need to hold on to it. You need to write it down. You need to put it into a notebook. You need to write down every single, these are future memories, and I want to teach on this, and I'll probably teach on this in another video. But I'm going to talk to you about what the Lord is wanting you guys to understand here, is that when He comes in and He shows you a picture like this, it's because it's already happened in that time frame. You're already there, and He just allowed you to see it through His eyes. And He's showing that. He showed me my spouse. And I want you guys to understand that at that moment, I'm looking at her going, oh my, oh my. And I've always told the Father, I really do love her. I love her so much. And if she could ever understand how much I loved her and what I would do for her, she'd come running home. One of the other ones was too, is, you know, God should even, if He's shown you your children, like with me, I have twins, and the twins are prophetic, you know. one scene that he showed me is that she hands me one of the twins because she's going to go nurse the other one. She wasn't expecting this. She's not expecting this at her age. But God, if God can give Sarah a child at 90, he can obviously give her kids. And this is why I want you guys to understand that if God's given you a promise about your children, you need to hold on to that one too. You need to write it down. If you can draw it into a picture form, draw it into a picture form. If you can write it into something that you can remember, you got to keep reminding God of that promise. You got to keep thanking him that he showed you something from the future, because you're somewhere in the future and you look much better than you look right now. And I don't like dinosaurs, and this is one thing he showed me about Rama. It's actually Remy, but Rama is high functioning. I believe she's on the spectrum and she might be strong-willed. I know that Darcy is nonverbal, autistic. And so the Lord showed this to me, and he showed me that my daughter, Rama, she loves scary things. I guess she can't, it doesn't bother her. It's like, and so my spouse is sitting there watching, I don't know if Rama is leaning into mother, but they're watching Jurassic Park. I don't like scary movies. I don't like Jurassic Park, but obviously she can handle it. And so Rama's sitting here giggling and laughing as the dinosaurs are coming through, so it doesn't bother her. And then all of a sudden the Lord gave me a word that came from a clip from an Eminem song, was "I'm not afraid," and that's what came to my head as part of his lyrics. I'm not afraid, and it reminded me that he's already setting up the future generations, and that's why the enemy is fighting these unions so hard. It's witchcraft, it's manipulation, it's voodoo, it's any form of witchcraft, it's blood magic. You have to cover your spouse. You have to cover them. If you love them and you believe that God gave them to you, you have to cover them, because you also have to pray that they come up higher. So something that's made me really angry, and I told the Lord, I said, no, you have to send it back out. You have to send a divine helper. You send that book back out. It has to go back out, because she has to come up higher. And one of the people that I love the most is Rachel Birchfield, and I grew up at country camp with her, and I grew up how she moved in the spirit. And a lot of your kingdom spouses have to come up higher. God's not playing around with them. He's not playing around. Some are you going to deal with children's hearts. Some are you dealing with people that are converting from witchcraft, who are coming to the Father. Some that are turning away from their wicked sins. I'm talking about lost coins. So you have to understand that God's not playing around right now. And if you're a prodigal and you're breaking your kingdom spouse's heart and you're making them cry and they're coming to the Father saying no more, and that you need to convict my spouse's heart for this isn't just your free will. This is about souls being won into the kingdom. And if you're refusing to align with God's will for your life, are you going to allow 10,000 souls to perish and go into the lake of fire for all of eternity because you decided that you weren't going to step up to the microphone? That you weren't going to step up to what God called you to do? I want you to understand right now, I don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know who I'm speaking to. If you're a prodigal out there, maybe you're the spouse, maybe you're the wife, maybe you're the husband, but you've run so far from your spouse, you've run from your calling, but you haven't done it before. You've done it once before. The Father says, no, not this time. No. And I'm telling you, all these prodigals out there, you think that you can run, but I'm telling you, God's not allowing it anymore. He says a feast is about to happen. It says some of your kingdom spouses, they're preparing to celebrate when you come home. They're preparing to celebrate. It says even though they might be mad at you and upset at you because you abandoned them, and that they're crying out and asking God to send you home, to send my spouse home, bring her home, bring him home. If you're a kingdom spouse and God's given you a revelation, you call it out. You say, send my spouse home. You remind the Father of that promise. And you remind the Father that you can't do this ministry without your spouse. And God's going to move on your spouse. Because, and I'm going to tell you, you do what God calls you to do. He's going to open up doors for you. He's going to send your spouse back so fast, you won't know what hit you. It'll be a shit your pants surprise. So you have to surrender. If you're a kingdom spouse and you have a calling on your life, you need to come to the Father. And if you've done something, you need to repent. You need to repent of your sins and ask the Lord to forgive you. If you're a prodigal and you're running from your kingdom spouse, maybe you already know. Maybe you cut something off. Maybe you really did have feelings for someone, but you cut this off because you were afraid of peer pressure, what everybody thought of you. So what? So what? So what of what it might have been? God's not playing around now. He chose you for a very specific assignment, and some of you guys have to come up higher. He's not playing around in this generation. He wants his final harvest, and he's not very happy about it. He's not happy with people right now. So this will be it until I start talking about the other things that God has told me to talk about. But I just want to remind you, kingdom spouses out there, if God's given you a promise, you need to stand still. You need to stand steadfast and wait on the Father to bring your spouse home. Whoever they are, with female or male, you need to press the Father and remind him. And you say, God, you said that this was my spouse. You showed me this is my spouse. You said that this is who I'm supposed to be with. You let the Father know that he made that promise. And then you ask the Father for favor to tip the scales in your favor. Because he already knows your heart. He already knows that you're willing to go after the enemy's kingdom. He already knows that you want to win souls into his kingdom. So he's going to go move on your spouse. And when he moves on your spouse, it ain't going to be funny. Your spouse is going to come home crying. She's going to ask you, or he's going to ask you to forgive me. They're going to cry. I want you to know there's going to be tears. I know with mine there's going to be tears coming from her eyes. That when she finally comes back, she's going to cry. And it's going to be like she's crying because it's her party. And she's going to need to be held. Your kingdom spouses are going to have to be held. Because some of them may not even make it across the threshold. They may just burst into tears the first moment they see you for the first time. So, I'm going to remind you, you stand firm. You stand firm at what God has already given you on your